Hi, it's Mrs. Benkovich, and I am the reading specialist at Whitman Post. I am going to read Chapter 2, Mortimer. Not long after the mice left, Al came downstairs, ignoring the apples he'd lined up for her. She sat herself down on the basement floor, where she did not move for almost an hour. She was staring at the library cart. In 20 years, Al had never done that before. Mortimer wondered if she needed a hug and went over to stand on one of her feet. "Oh, dear cat," she said, and reached for him. Little too tight, Mortimer thought, but he allowed it. When Al began to take the books off the cart, stacking them on the floor all around him, Mortimer closed his eyes. That delicious book smell, his heart said. He let himself think about the library and his kitten days. Mortimer and his sister Petunia had loved their games. Boss of the library was Petunia's favorite. The rules were simple. Whoever climbed to the highest place was the winner. Mortimer, with his 24 toes, was a good climber, but he rarely won. Petunia climbed higher. She had 6 toes on every paw, just like he did. He could still remember her face, smiling down at him from the highest bookshelves in the old library stacks. Once, she'd somehow made it to the top of the library's big blue doors. His eyes closed. Mortimer remembered. Petunia was like a beautiful and triumphant snowball way up near the ceiling. A stuck snowball. Miss Scoggins had stood on a chair to get her down. Miss Scoggins was Mortimer's favorite. Her hugs were never too tight. These happy thoughts were interrupted by Al. "Dear cat." Al was clutching her notebook. He saw that she had drawn lots of marks on the library cart and piled all the books onto it again, messily. Her cheeks were flushed. "We must wake Miss Scoggin," she told him. "There is no time to be lost." He followed her upstairs and then right back down to the basement, now with Miss Scoggins floating sleepily behind them. "I was having the most delightful dream," Miss Scoggins told Al. "I dreamed I was at the movies. I believe it was the theater in Grantville. They have superior popcorn, my dear. We must go there. Please do." Al shoved a plate of apple muffins at her and said, "I have a plan. I need a lookout." It was almost dawn when Mortimer realized that Al and Miss Scoggins intended to push the library cart outside. "Outside," he told himself. "They are taking it away," his heart said. This was a terrible idea, in Mortimer's opinion, and he told them so. Miss Scoggins pointed at him and said to Al, Did you remember to feed the dear cat, his dinner? He is meowing quite a bit." And Al said, "I did feed him. Maybe he's just feeling conversational." She leaned toward Mortimer and said, "Are you saying very important things, dear cat?" How tiring, Mortimer thought. There must be another way, because he did not want the library cart to go anywhere. And then, before he could make an actual plan, Al was pushing it toward the cellar door, and Miss Scoggins was right behind her. What should he do? This cart of old books was all that was left of his first home, his library. It was all that was left of his happy memories of kittenhood and his Petunia. All my fault, his heart said. And now they were almost at the door. He cried, "Stop!" and leapt from the floor to the top of the library cart. But the cart kept moving. Mortimer's bulk was mostly fur. He only weighed about 9 pounds. Al laughed, and away we go. Mortimer had never felt so miserable in his life, but he faced forward and stayed where he was. "My library," his heart said. "What is left of it," he reminded himself. Outside, in the dark, Mortimer watched Al kneel in the grass and dismantle the library cart. His library was in pieces. He had not been able to protect it after all. Al sawed, she hammered, she glued. Mortimer was getting a stomachache. Then she pointed at a towel-wrapped bundle a few steps away. "Guess what's in there?" she asked Mortimer. "Do not break the books," he told her. "Please do not hurt any books." Meow to you too, Al said, pulling the towel toward them. He looked at her. It did annoy him sometimes the way she assumed he had no idea what she was saying, when in fact she was the one who could not understand him. Doors, she said, lifting a small square of wood and glass out of the towel bundle. The thing in her hands looked very familiar. Then he realized it belonged to the little cabinet over the sink at home. The cheese cupboard doors. She had taken them both off their hinges. Correction, she had taken the hinges too. And now, from one of her dress pockets, she produced a screwdriver. He went to sit with Miss Scoggin. Oh, good, she said. You can help me be lookout. Meow twice if you see anyone coming. Mortimer sighed. He hoped they could go home soon. There was just a bit of light growing in the sky when Al finished her little library with stolen cheese cupboard doors. Mortimer was tired. He trailed home after Miss Scoggin and Al, but when he reached their porch, Mortimer realized that he could not go inside. Not with my library outside, his heart said. What is left of it, he reminded himself. Mortimer turned around. He walked down the steps and away. My library, his heart said, still needs me.